I'll wait for Ralph. Okay, let's put this here in case,
How are you? Hi.
okay. Don't bang your forehead on the table. All right, let's go. Okay, good evening and welcome to the January 2023 Orange Board of Selectmen meeting. All of you know the emergency exit to my right. The audience's left up the stairs would lead to the rear parking lot. If for some reason you can't go that way, down the hall, follow George, and you'll end up out by the firehouse. Or you can go up the stairs behind the wall with the clock on it through the double doors, and that will put you out in front of the town hall. With all that said, can we please rise for the pledge if I can? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Introductions, I'll start on my right down there tonight.
Good evening and Happy New Year. PJ Shanley.
Good evening, Judy Williams.
Ann Denny, Secretary to the Board.
Vincent Marino, Town Attorney.
Ralph Okenquist, good evening.
Good evening, John Carangelo. Good evening, Mitch Goldblatt.
All right, public participation. Public participation is for any item that is not an agenda item. We allow you up to 2 minutes to speak. Seeing none in the audience, at the table? Anybody? Other than I have no announcements tonight, right? Well, I have a, oh, I do have one. First of all, we lost one of our most stalwart volunteers of the town of Orange this past week. His service, memorial service, was across the street this afternoon. I think ever since I can remember, and all of us here, Don Lewis was one of the biggest volunteers to more committees and more groups and more organizations than anybody that I can think of. And at 90 years young, it was his time. And our thoughts go out to his wife, Jean, and family, his daughter, son, and he really was a great volunteer to the town for a lot of years, and he will be missed. Monday, January 16th. Town offices will be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Day. However, the transfer station is open. Reminder, there seems to be a lot of confusion. People with taxes that they have to have them in by January 1st. It's not that you have to have them in by January 1st, or they call looking for we didn't receive our second bill. You don't get a second bill. You get one bill the end of June, beginning of July. Your motor vehicle payments are a one payment system, and your real estate, if you so choose, is a two payment system. Some people choose to pay two payments per calendar year of the same year, and others pay one in July, then one in January. You actually have until the grace day, which is around the 1st of February, depending how it falls with the calendar, to pay. You are not due by January 1st. You have the month of January to pay those taxes. So there is confusion, and you do not get a second bill. It came with your first bill the end of June, beginning of July. And the last thing that has come to our attention a lot, it's reasonably warm out, and people are outside, and the leaves aren't on the trees, and there's neighbors complaining about neighbors. We've gotten some amazing complaints about who doesn't like the color of their neighbor's woodpile tarp cover, and commercial vehicles. Oh, yes, George. Oh, yes, George. And some people they move here from other towns, and they bring their, commercial vehicles with them, and there are people calling and complaining on it. So if you do hear from Jack, Jack Demerjian, our zoning enforcement officer, there are guidelines. They're available online to see what's allowed or not allowed. But as far as your neighbor's tarp on his woodpile, they're allowed to cover it with orange, blue, green, brown, silver, whatever. But yeah, it's amazing some of the calls we're getting with this reasonable weather out there. But thank you for all of that. The last thing to remember is we may get some wet snow at some point or another. And let's not forget those batter boards to protect your mailboxes. The town does not replace mailboxes unless they run them over with a truck. So you put in 2 fence posts, a piece of plywood, 4 bolts, and don't forget to put your address numbers on that piece of plywood on the side that the plow will be coming towards your mailbox, not on the opposite side. And that's also very important because we will be getting some snow. At some point, we definitely will get some. So those are the reminders of the night. Okay, Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you for remembering Don Lewis, who also served especially as our police commission chair. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't also remember Priscilla Searles, who was our town historian, who also passed away recently. And she was active up until the bicentennial and
Yes.
on the gazebo with us.
Yes.
And so she'll also be missed. Thank you.
You are right, Mitchell, and I forgot that one. And Priscilla was, God, if you read her obituary, she was very renowned in her abilities also, and she loved being the town historian. And, she was really a terrific lady, and I loved teasing her. Unfortunately, her time was up. She passed in her sleep, which I think is in her own home, which I think is the best way in the world to pass. I mean, I've lived it in my own family and others that have gone this route, and I think it is a blessing when a family can survive that. It's very hard, but I think it's probably the greatest blessing there is. So thank you. Thanks for reminding all of us about that. So those are the announcements. Minutes. To consider and act on the minutes of the December 14th, 2022 regular meeting. If there's any errors, omissions, or corrections, please state page and paragraph. If not, is there a motion on those?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Unanimous. All right. New business. To consider and act on request to approve the reappointment of Denise Stein as the municipal agent for the elderly. This is required by the state that she is recognized through the legislative body as the person with the community service department that is the agent for the elderly. And so is there a motion or questions on Denise Stein? I think all of you probably have dealt with Denise Stein or met with Denise Stein at some point or another.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous. We have a new Director of Community Services will be starting in February. It's been a long search, and we have a new person coming to us who, through the interview process, and all the board members that sat through the interview process and all felt that she's a good fit. She currently is employed in Stamford. She resides in Trumbull, and she'll be starting in Orange in February. So, with that said.
I make a motion to go out of order tonight and take up number 3, since Mr. Messina and George are here. I think that'll go pretty quick, because I think we'll have protracted discussion number 2.
Sure. You can do both of those, actually. Do 3 and 4.
Sure.
All right, item number 3, motion to go out of order.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Number 3 is to consider and act on a request from the Lions Club to use the field at High Plains Community Center for the annual Easter egg hunt on Saturday, April 1st, 2023, with a rain date of Saturday, April 8th of 2023. And if the gym at High Plains is needed on the rain date, to waive customary rental fees for use of the gym at High Plains Community Center. Lawrence Messina, is
Thank you.
here tonight.
Mr. Goldblatt, how did you know that my sleep time is 8:30? So I wouldn't have been able to go beyond that. Thanks a lot. Well, I want to thank members of the Board of Selectmen for having George and I here tonight. The Lions Club is going to have its 60th Easter egg hunt, and we're going to be spreading out about 10,000 chocolate eggs, have face painting. Home Depot also gives us some building materials to have the kids build items, and it's a fun time. So we're looking forward to it. I am going to ask a board member if they want to become the Easter Bunny. I've just sanitized the head and the costume, but if there are no takers, I don't think no hands are going up. We'll search and get somebody else. I mean, you know, I offer every year, but you guys, you're just not into it. But
Lord.
But anyway, yes, if you don't mind that we have our Easter egg hunt, it's going to be, Saturday the 1st of April, rain date Saturday, April 8th. And if that day is rained out, we're going to ask for the use of the gymnasium, and if the fee could be waived, it'd be very much appreciated. But that's it in a nutshell. So,
No, in an eggshell.
an eggshell, whatever. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Motion
Thank you.
made, multiple seconds. All in favor?
Thank you very much
Very
for giving the approval. Appreciate it. And you're
All
welcome
right.
to come and have some eggs.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you'll get trampled. Item number 4 is to consider an act on a request to approve the tax refunds totaling $25,031.52. Motion made and seconded on that. Yeah, exactly, Ann. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous. Okay. We'll leave committees for the end. There isn't much there. All right, now we got to go back to item number 2, is to consider an act on the request to approve the renewal of the license agreements for the rental of farm fields at the Wright Farm property, the Racebrook Tract property, Fred Wolf Park, Ewan Farm Preserve, and Racebrook Tract is on here. Okay, I missed it. All right, so that's what the discussion is tonight. And I have a letter from Jody Deitch. She asked to be read. I think everybody was on receipt of this, but read it anyhow. Mr. Zioli, Board of Selectmen, reading your agenda, you are scheduled to vote on renewal of corn leases at upcoming meeting. Unfortunately, I cannot attend, but would appreciate my letter being read into the record. The current parent concerns about continuing the corn lease of the land near Fred Wolf Park rather than utilizing the land to benefit the children and families seems like a fair request. No lease should be issued or renewed until decisions about the property are finalized. There is absolutely no rush to approve these leases, and if they are allowed to expire, there is no detriment to our community. Allowing the leases to renew could impact future plans for the park and its development. That will be detrimental to our children and families. Urge you to vote no on the lease renewal. Jody Deitch, Harborview Road. Okay. So the first one we have up is, this goes over here.
Jim, can I suggest that
Go ahead.
either we discuss them or at least vote on them individually? I know they're all on one.
That's why I
okay.
just said the first one.
Okay, because they're all listed as number 2, but I would suggest that we
No.
do them separately.
Yeah, well-
Thank you.
The first one on my stack is for Joseph Moncheski, who leases land at the Wright Farm property, is the first one, which is bases, I guess I'll say, from the corner of Ridge Road and Old Grassy Hill Road goes down to Grassy Hill. Any concerns, questions?
I just had one concern, and now, where's the date? There's a date that he has to have the rye put down. And I think it's October 15th, there it is. Our seasons have kind of gone longer, and I know he's been harvesting all the way through September at this point.
Into November.
Yeah, so that kind of gives him a real small window in order to get that rye down. And I think the rye still is good enough to go if you pushed it off until the end of October.
We put right down November 18th this
Right,
year.
right,
So, and it's came up and it's fine.
yeah. So can we open that up a little bit, because that is definitive in the lease?
Well, if you wanted to do something like that, cover crop must be seeded at the end of harvesting
Okay,
planted crops. You
All
can
right.
change it to something along that line. Just instead of pinning it to a
Right.
date, you just, cover crops must be seeded upon completion.
upon completion of harvesting, okay, all right.
But then without a date, there's like, it can always be afterwards. So I think a date is, even if it's like November 15th or November 30th. Well, as long as there's, I think there should be a date in there, because otherwise it can go on till the spring.
Well, no, it's after completion of harvesting, but,
Right.
yeah, you could put a date there. It won't matter,
Right.
but
Put,
you don't put it down until after you've.
That's
done
fine. I
cutting.
think put a safe date, but I think we should have a date.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
December 1st?
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That'll work. If you keep having weather like we're having, you could seed it now, for crying out loud.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay,
With that change.
with that change.
The change of date.
All right. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. The second one is for Fieldview Farm, for the Racebrook Track property is what I'm looking at. Is that what everybody else has? Should be on the backside one? Okay. I don't know is there the cover crop clause in there? All right, well then, other than adjusting that cover crop clause,
December 1st again?
yeah, if you keep them all consistent.
Question.
Go ahead.
So this falls into, it's going to fall into the next one as well, if we handle the Fred Wolf Park. So on the Fieldview license agreements, which I believe there are two, and there's two
Yes,
that
there
are
are.
not, the Fieldview ones, unlike the one we just approved, has a stipulation in there. The Fieldview shall have the option to renew the term of this license for an additional 2 years, the expiration of this term. I'm on the bottom of page 2. Provided, however, the Fieldview is not in default, et cetera, et cetera. We don't give that right to the one we just approved. And so I don't see the need for putting that in there, and I think it becomes problematic, and I think it becomes problematic when we start discussing Fred Wolf Park. So I don't want to approve this one with this, because I'm not going to, if we do approve Fred Wolf Park, I'm not going to be supporting it with the option to renew for an additional 2 years, because I think that becomes problematic.
Well, that's fine. You can, I mean, they sent in their letter for request of renewal, but
And that's fine, but I think having in the lease with this, it has created some consternation among people who have reviewed the Fred Wolf Park lease very carefully, and therefore, if we approve this one, I get to Fred Wolf Park, you're going to say, well, we approved the last one with it in there, why this one? So I'm just going to say right now, I don't think we need that in there, and I think it's a situation we should remove. And we just approved one without it, so I don't see why we
well,
should have a
that,
special
yeah, they
consideration.
didn't have it. This was started actually before you and I, actually. These were started with Bob Souza, and I think Brian Stone had put that in there originally
It could be.
when it was done. And it passed through Bob Souza and then you and then me. It's just been in there. I don't think that that's a big
Okay.
detriment to remove.
Yeah, I actually don't think this is properly before this body at this time, because I actually spoke to Patrick about this. This was a document prepared by Brian Stone, and it dates back to, I believe, 1998. And it's just been carried forward from time to time. So,
Vinny, your microphone.
Oh, got it. Thank you. So this is a document that was originally prepared by Attorney Stone, dates back to 1998, and has just been carried forward from term to term to term. And when this was last approved, it had the language in it that gave the right to Fieldview Farm the right to renew. It had its option language in there. It's a legal right that is in Fieldview Farm. Whether you like it or not, they have the legal right. So they have one option of renewal. I don't read it as giving a perpetual option. I read it as giving an option. And they exercised that option in December when they gave a written option. So the term of this began on April 14th of 2021. It was 2 years. It ran from April 14th of 2021 to arguably April 13, 2023. They exercised their option in December. By my calculation, 90 days pre that would be January. So they gave us written notice more than 90 days prior to the expiration of the term. Now, notwithstanding, the town reserved the right to terminate this license. Not a lease, it's a license. But the town had to exercise that right of termination 180 days prior to. Well, 180 days prior to, by my calculation, would have been October.
We missed it.
Just by my calculation, it would have been October. So the town no longer has the right to terminate this license. Fieldview has exercised its right of renewal. There's nothing for this board to do. This has automatically renewed as a matter of contract for a 2-year period. If you want, so in 2025, right, this will be back before this body, and you'll, at that point, to change the language or not renew it. And that's the way I interpret this. But this has been a contract that's been in place since First Selectman Sousa and Attorney Stone put it in place. So I don't believe there's any business for this board to do.
So why is it before us?
I question that. It's before you because it came to you as a with all the other leases, all the other licenses, and I wanted to give an explanation because of the great public interest that this has been gathering. So I didn't want it to just go away. And I think that while the ad hoc committee is exploring what to do with this land, this will be something that the user will be able to continue to do under the existing license, and in 2 years it'll be back before this body, and at that time you'll deal with it. But I don't see, as a matter of law, I don't see that you have any rights.
Okay.
Comment on this?
You know, Vinny, that's a new
When
one.
we ask,
That's a new
you'll
one.
get a
I don't think it's ever. I think it's
I
ever
see
been.
your hand.
It's never been discussed in that light.
But do you look at paragraph?
I'm looking at it.
Look at paragraph. Look at paragraph 6D. Again, I did
Well,
not.
Vinny, if I hadn't brought this up as
I
a
did not
concern,
draft this, Mitch.
I know, but if I hadn't brought this up as a concern, we would have gone forward and voted on this.
No, you wouldn't have, because I was going to stop you.
Okay.
I raised this to the first selectman before the meeting, and I questioned why this was even before the body, because there's no business for this body to do. I questioned the timing of the notice that was granted, that was given by the licensee.
Right.
And I questioned whether or not it was timely. And it is, because the
You'll have your chance.
license agreement was entered into in April, on April 14th, 2021. And when you go back in time, the first license agreement was entered into on May 20th, 1998. And then, the last license agreement was April 14th, 2021. So, again, it's 2 years from April 14, 2021. So Fieldview Farms rights flow from this document. It doesn't go from January 1, it goes from April 14.
Okay. Got a question?
I'm still trying to
You have to come up. Yeah, you have to
process
come
this,
up here.
Vinny. If I can, excuse me, if I can. So you're saying that the term of the current, well, first of all, we're not talking about Fair Wolf Park yet, although I wasn't expecting this. For any of the licenses that have that caveat in there, you're saying that from the time the license went into effect, not the date at the top of the page, which is January, but you're saying based on April.
The term, right, because of when this was entered into,
Yep.
because of when this was entered into,
That's when it starts.
we had it flow from that time.
Yep.
And when this originally flowed,
All the way from May of 98?
right, when you go back in time, the license agreements, back when Attorney Stone drafted this, they were 2 years going back May 15, 1998. And I went over this with the former town clerk. I have the original agreement, the original license agreement, in my right here, and it's dated May 20th, 1998. And all the documents,
All right.
flow from here.
So when do we amend this then? So we can't do it now, is what you're saying. So then if we're looking for another 2-year terms, it would have to be 180 days prior to that 2-year term.
Well, they've
18
exercised their
months.
option.
I know.
So
Excuse me, guys, I apologize. I can't hear what they're saying and hear what you're saying. It's very disturbing. So if you please allow people to talk.
So what's going to happen is they've exercised their option, so it's going to naturally expire. So no one's going to have any rights when this option expires. Then they're not going to have any more rights. They don't have another option. They only get one option.
Well, they only have one option. It expired in 2000.
No, they had one option under this agreement.
Under this last agreement. You have to correct it before.
Which never should have. I mean, you're saying for every 2 years. In other words, I mean, you go back to 1998. They had an option. All right.
Right, and then
So that expired, and this carried over into contract after contract.
right
Okay. And then the town has the right
to terminate.
not less than 180 days prior to expiration of the initial license term. So what does that mean?
That means that
This isn't the initial. Now we're not in the initial term anymore.
correct.
So we have no right to cancel it within 180 days of the end of the 2 years.
You would have had to cancel it in October.
So this is automatically renewed for 2 years, and we have no right to cancel.
Not now.
Not now. And so what's going to happen is they have their option. It expires at the end of that term. And now you will either enter into a new agreement or no agreement.
You just have to notify them of what you're doing.
You don't have to notify them of anything. Once this option period is over, there's no agreement because they have no more rights at that point.
So
Because they're-
if we vote tonight on either of these two, I think it's only the two, not all four. If we vote tonight on either of these two, it then extends it out another 2 years, correct?
any agreement that does not have an option language, you have to vote on.
Right. So I'm talking the ones with the options, which I know there's two, at least two. I haven't looked at the third one closely enough.
Right, no,
But there's two with an option. So if we vote tonight on this, what's in front of us, it pushes it out yet another 2 years.
You can't vote on it.
You don't
vote on
have
it.
to. You don't vote on the option, the ones with the options, because those options have been exercised. So those have been automatically renewed.
it's not the appropriate time.
right? So if someone has exercised their option, they had a contractual right of extension,
Right.
right? So that's, Mitch, it's, if I entered into a lease with you,
Vinny, I hear you, but for 2 years, every 2 years for the last 20 years.
I get it.
We've been voting on this.
I get it.
And tonight, after 20 years, because it's been brought up because people are concerned, all of a sudden we realize that
we've been
it's
doing it-
automatically
We've
renewed.
been doing it pro forma. We've been doing it pro
Well,
forma.
there'll be no pro forma vote tonight then, at least by me.
Well, you've been doing it pro forma because they've all come up, and we've just been voting on it as a matter of form, because I don't believe there's been an exercise of that option.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Peggy Pisano, excuse me, 523 Fairway Road. So this is enlightening. It's information that we didn't have prior to. And I think it should have come before the Board of Selectmen and the community so that we had that understanding that it needed to be canceled in October if we were going to cancel it at that point. So that's one concern of mine. The other concern is that, if I'm reading this correctly, for the two properties, for one property, it's $275 per year, and the other property is $200 per year for a 2-year lease. And what size land, what size property are we talking about?
One is, I think, approximately 10 acres, and one is approximately 12 acres.
So 22 acres for $475 per year. I mean, it doesn't really sound reasonable to me. And I'd also like to know if other bidders had put in that they would like to utilize that property.
No other bidders put in to utilize that property. There's very limited people in town that would utilize that property. They all know and respect each other, and they let each function with one piece of property. The only person who doesn't rent any town property is me. I'm the only one.
Well, that's fine. I'm just not
course it is.
knowing that people have an understanding that it's an option to utilize that property for whatever means.
It is an option. We maintain them within the town farm families first. If somebody else were interested, your husband sent 2 emails requesting information. I responded to him 2 times to submit a letter of interest if he truly had interest. He never did. Yesterday, he sent an email that he never was responded to by anybody about bidding on the land. Here's the 2 emails where I responded to him and said, if he's interested, he needs to submit a letter. So to say that he was never responded to is disingenuous at best, and he doesn't farm anyhow.
So
I don't
Jim,
quite see that
I
happening.
was speaking to you and to the selectmen. It had nothing to do with Tom's
No,
going to
I'm
be
saying
talking
it.
to you
You
about.
asked me if anybody else had submitted, and I said I have 2 emails
And you said
here.
no.
Only
On the
from your-
property that we're
only from
talking
your
about.
husband.
Right, on the property we're discussing, the $475 per year
Racebrook
for
Tract, nobody-
22 acres
No,
of
they're
property.
2 separate parcels. Racebrook Tract,
Right.
nobody has submitted a request, if that's what you want me to say.
Okay, so the other property is at $275 per year?
It's $375.
375.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and no one has requested the Racebrook track? Has, to
No.
utilize that area
No.
yet? So that's up for grabs, correct?
No, it's here with an option.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then, now that we've learned that on this piece, I want to say something here, because I think there's a lot of concern and confusion, and audience concern and confusion. This committee that was appointed to look into improving things possibly down at Wolf Park, they haven't met yet. They're going to meet. That will be their charge. They will then start to gather some of their ideas. And then they have to start to gather companies that do design of park and recreation type facilities. That will then have public inputs, just the same as the last one that Park and Recreation and the Selectmen had put together. They had public meetings and all with what people would like to see. Then they had public presentations later on as to what the possibilities were and where they would fit within the property. That then would go for it to be voted on by the multiple boards and the public that would have the say in that. And then, once that is planned out, then they would have to decide, I've seen a lot written, so whether it be soccer fields or a pickleball court or basketball court or racquetball or whatever it might be for recreation, that then would be prioritized as to what people, there would probably be some sort of a, I'll call it a straw poll, to see what people would prioritize as their top hopeful item and down, you know. And that is going to take most, if not all, of this 2-year period. It's not going to happen in 1 week, 2 weeks, or 8 weeks. But it is going to happen over time, just the same as what has evolved there so far. And, all I can say is to follow it with what the committee does. You can reach out to the representatives on this board, the Park and Rec Board and all, and find out their thoughts. There will be meetings that are held in public that are not public meetings, and there will be meetings that are public meetings where there's, gathering of input. But to panic tonight that you think if this land is leased for farming for the next 2 years is a problem to whatever. There's no guarantee that that piece of land that you're also concerned with is going to end up being soccer fields. It could be other things. You could have a basketball court there. You could have racquetball. You could have pickleball. You could have an outdoor hockey rink for all I know. I mean, I think, I agree. But there's many things that could happen there, but those are all still long to be determined. The petition that was put up was premature. It came up before the committee was even appointed. It was making thoughts and possibilities out there to get people stimulated to think, but there's a ways to go before that committee and all decides it. We were approached, since all this started, we have somebody who's interested in buying that property, a nonprofit, to use it as part of the educational programs of the region for different types of field production. I was absolutely bowled over when this group came to me to consider selling that. It's basically 10 acres usable there, to this nonprofit for educational programs for the children of this community and others towards growing foods, whether, I don't know if it would be in the ground, in hydroponics, that we haven't got into. But I mean, so we were even approached with that. We've been approached by the people, all the people on Hilltop Road. We've been approached by a multiple group of them because that road shoots straight down from Ridge Road. It's a straight, as Tano's arrow shot from Ridge Road down to that land, and they're concerned about the speeding and the quality of life on their weekends down there when that was, and that was a consideration back when Mr. Souza had the committee developing that property back in before 2000. So the committee has a lot to do. So worrying about this piece of land producing corn, hay, tomatoes, potatoes, or anything else at this moment is not really a big challenge because you got a ways to go. You have to come up here if you want to speak. Yeah, you are more than welcome to come up and input.
While she's coming up, Jim, you mentioned Hilltop Road. Do you mean a different road?
Or Hemlock Road.
Hemlock Road, thank you.
Yeah, not Hilltop. That's your neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fleming, 481 Wagon Trail. So I've been following this for a long time. My kids are both soccer players. And I've been listening a lot. As a matter of fact, the person who was first involved in designing it is a very good friend of mine. And I guess what I'm wondering is the reason I made sure I came tonight, although I've been involved in talking with people and trying to do more. For one, I would just like to say, Joe Moore, our wonderful coach, takes us to all different towns. I grew up in Guilford. And when we go to other towns, we are like, oh, look at this field. Look at this field. This is very cool. We love, our coach. He helps our kids learn, and this is soccer in particular. I want you to think about, if you're watching, if you're here, where do your children go to the playground right now? We can't go during summer hours to our playground that we currently have. We can't go to the pickleball courts that we currently have. We can't go. I think we all know this. But what I will caution you is that this committee, I know, is started by a bunch of moms. Do not underestimate that they are really wanting this playground. So the 2-year period you're talking about, as much as I respect that, there are going to be people pushing to have these things done faster than you think. And we have people that we know who are going to help push that forward. So what if, though, it's 17 months from now and that land can't be considered because it's under lease? You can't even put that into a plan because it's under lease. And you don't know when that's going to happen. The other thing go ahead. Did you want
No,
to?
go ahead, finish. I thought you were.
The other thing I just wanted to say, when we were looking over the contract, I don't have what you have in front of you, but I'm not sure if this was correct or not, but what it says there is there's a 2-year contract, and the dates say the 2021 to 2022, which to me looks like an incorrect contract. Not sure if that makes it null and void or not, but that's just what we saw. Go ahead.
Just so you know, Orange has the right to terminate for any reason going forward. So we can, if that comes to fruition, exercise our rights going forward.
So you're saying, like, 17 months into it, you can just tell these people you can't do that anymore with your land?
We give written notice, and because we do have termination of the license. Orange shall have the right to terminate the license for any reason, and annually, on or before the 15th of December in any year.
Okay,
So-
that was the first I'm hearing of that.
Right.
So I guess the reason that, I've seen on the moms group today, and people are saying, we just kind of wanted that committee to be able to meet, before these things happen, even if it's saying that, hey, we're not going to be able to do something for 2 years, so who cares anyway? Or we know we have so-and-so who's involved, has already been looking at this, can plan it if that were to be the area. But I agree here, here's the thing. I play pickleball in Milford. Go to Peace Park. I do the splash pads in East Haven. We don't have that here. I even said to my kid today, she was like, because I had to leave her with my father-in-law. Why are you leaving, Mommy? I was like, well, it's important. I said to her, she's 8. So to be honest with you, hopefully you're not 24 before this happens. That's why Mommy wants to go today, to figure this out. And here's the other thing I do want to say. Every time I drive into Fred Wolf Park, I almost bought the house on Ridge there. I feel bad for those families, and I feel like I'm risking my life every time I drive down that road that someone else is going to come. I know there's been talk about expanding that, whatever, but if that's the only in and out,
Well, there should be 2.
Okay, so that's what I've heard, and that's what I'm trying to understand too. But there needs to be, think about all the people who go to Peace Park, who go to Bodie's place. That's a lot of traffic, so, just to consider. So that was why I showed up today, because if the committee doesn't have time to meet, and again, do not underestimate the people that I hear who are saying, we want this to get done. Let's just, and if we can use that land, let's utilize it. Let's find the best way. That's all I'm saying. Like, if that's in a 2-year lease, then we can't even consider it. So if you're saying that, that's a different thing that, might be considered. Also, just consider what we noticed today. It looks like the dates are wrong, and I'm not sure. I have an MBA, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not sure if that makes it a null and void contract, but.
I didn't draft it, so I'm not happy with it, but.
It does say it says 2 years, but only this 1 year of a date. To me, that sounds like a contract that's not really
It's
valid.
inartfully drafted.
There are things happening there. There are things that will continue to happen there. The committee will be meeting to do other things there. There will be meetings, like I said, meetings held in public that are not public meetings, and will be public meetings, both with that committee and as they search through for design people that do that sort of recreation improvements and stuff.
Okay.
So with time.
I guess
will be.
today I'm just asking the board not to tie that land up where we couldn't use it in 2 years if we wanted to, if that's what it came down to.
No, we're not at that point at this,
Okay,
right now.
that's
Right now,
fine.
it's the 2 years. By the time this committee, have 2 of the members on sit on this table right here, and by then, things will be gelling, and then they'll be moving forward. But there's a lot to do before they get to that point.
Okay, well, I think I've, made my point too about
You have.
the 2 years. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so then we will leave the race, am I still on Racebrook Tract here? Yeah, so Racebrook Tract passes by option. Okay,
Enfield View.
that's Racebrook Tract. Then,
The next one does too.
the next one then would be Field View again, and that would be the same situation as this lease, so that will pass by review, and it will be under advisement before the term of this agreement is up, so that that can be adjusted, because by then there may be other improvements desired. Okay,
So with Vinnie,
those both pass that way.
and so these will all be like reworked in
Yes.
advance for all of us to look at?
Yep.
In case we do need to terminate, or just at least change the language of the leases, right?
Right.
By the next one, okay.
Then the last one is,
Excuse me one second. You're talking about 2 years from now, though.
So, what,
well, less than 2 years.
so,
No, less than 2 years.
so it should come up on your agenda.
Well, or it just expires in 2 years.
It should come up,
We can't all talk over each other.
Right.
Please, take a moment.
right, it should
Take a
come.
deep breath.
Right, it should come up on your agenda for the 6 months prior. It should be calendared, so it's on your agenda for 6 months prior to the term of the expiration of it. So someone should calendar it, so it's automatically on your agenda, right? So this way, there's no question, it's not missed, right? It's an agenda item.
Yep.
And you act on it or you
Take care of
don't.
it then.
And this term is January 1st.
No, it's April, so it'll be April 25, so it's October 24.
Where do you see that?
Well, it's April.
He's
'cause
counting backwards.
I'm counting backwards, all right, because it's,
These dates somewhere?
right, because it went into effect April 21.
Okay.
So I would suggest you do it just so we don't screw it up September,
Right.
because you can do it
Right.
in advance.
Which is usually a special meeting.
But this also means they need to put the lime down on the 15th, regardless of how the crops look?
They could do
Because
what
you
they
can't
want.
amend?
Well,
no,
that's,
this,
no, the first one was,
this also says it.
All we care about is our notice.
Cover crop and lime are two different situations.
You can do-
The field looks nicer today.
You could do it in August. You just have to do it prior to.
Correct.
So I would suggest you do it in September,
Okay,
September of '24.
okay.
Okay.
Question.
Put that on our calendar.
Mitchell,
Vinny, I don't understand the 180 days.
You count backwards?
No. I don't understand how we have that right. Because by the same language you just read to us,
I understand.
it's 180 days prior to the expiration of the initial license term.
I know.
That date is passed.
I initially said there's nothing for you to do. Whatever, there's a lot of excitement. I said there's no rights. There's absolutely no rights. They get one option, and then there's no rights.
your initial date will be
Right.
this.
No one has any rights after this, Mitch. That's what I said.
Okay.
But I'm going to suggest that this comes up on your calendar, on your agenda, in September of '24. So whoever is the town attorney at that point in time can tell you, you have absolutely nothing to worry about, no one has any rights. Because this document gave them one option. They exercised it, and
That's it.
that's it. All right? Go to the video. That's what Marino said on this date.
Fine.
Okay.
I guess I'm just missing your point of clocking out 6 months prior.
I'm just because
That's what was in the document, right?
just so that you know that
To
this
get it done in advance of it, so you
this
don't have
lease is
the problem
expired.
again.
This license is expiring, Mitch,
Yep.
in April of '25.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
And you're going to have to decide, Are we going to extend it another 2 years? Are we not going to enter into these things anymore? Let's start the conversation,
So that would be in September, 6 months before.
right? So that we don't have a last minute, so you can start getting public input and you don't have last minute holiday rush.
Okay.
There's absolutely no need to give notices. There's no need for anything.
Hi, Erica Higgins, 303 Drummond Road. Now that we have this new revelation, which is very interesting, my question to the board and to the team of everybody who's been involved with the playground committee and its current location that it's slated to go in, would we think about putting that on hold based on having someone coming in and engineering and plotting out the park in a sensible, safe manner, rather than having the playground next to a very busy entrance to Fred Wolf Park, two busy entrances technically, the one coming off of Wolf Hollow and then the one that's going to be coming off of Oakview. I understand there's going to be a fence, but I will tell you right now that there are little kids watching their big brothers and sisters play soccer, and they're going to see a big, beautiful, pearly, shiny playground, and they are going to run into that parking lot, and someone is going to get killed. And I would hate for you, Mr. Zioli, to have that on your watch, because it will be a terrible day for Orange if we do not think about putting that playground in a different location, centrally located, so that parents who are watching their kids' soccer games can also watch their kids on the playground, rather than having to choose between the playground or their child who's 3, 4, 5, 7 years old running across an extremely busy parking lot. And I've been saying that from the beginning. I live there in the fall. I live there in the spring, and I see the amount of cars. People are not just from Orange. They're coming from all over to play lacrosse, to play soccer, men's leagues, women's leagues, whatever it may be, practice, and people park in perpendicular, parallel, all different ways, because it's not lined, it's not paved, it's not safe. So I understand the playground's been delivered, I see the storage units there, that is wonderful, and I am so glad all the effort that went into that, but I really hope that everybody can take a step back and wait for this committee to hire a consulting firm, an engineering firm that can actually plan it out nicely, beautifully, so that it makes sense and that the drainage is appropriate. I mean, I look at Old Tavern, it's underwater half the time in the spring when we're trying to play baseball. Chris Small busts his hind parts trying to put it down clay to dry up the fields because the drainage was never done correctly. So I would really hope that the town can do things correctly and take a pause. And I know the kids want the playground. I want the playground for my son. He's 5. But at the same time, I want it to be safe. So I really, really hope that the committee, and I talked to PJ at length about this the other night, I really hope, and I know that everybody wants children to be in their best interest, but this really, really is a safety issue. So I hope that everybody can really take a pause and think about that, because I certainly would not want my child to be the one getting hit by a car.
Hi, everyone. Angela McNabola, 290 Courier Drive. I just wanted to support what Erica just said. I'm too old to have kids to play soccer. They never liked soccer when they were there. Sorry?
The skater
She's
is
here.
back there.
But parents at my age that had kids that did play, and looking at, I realize we can't redo the lease. This isn't, for me, this isn't about farming or soccer or whatever. It's about safety. And the handful of times that I've been up there, I've almost been in fender benders myself, not documented, no emails, no police reports. It's hazardous. So I hope that the first thing that gets done is looking at that traffic pattern and looking at the hazardous. So I'm just up here to support with what Erica just said. I have nothing to win or lose by having a soccer field or a farm or whatever. I am committed that this is safety, and even that folks that don't have children that are there have been talking about this for years. how unsafe it is, the traffic situation. So that should be the first priority. Because God forbid, we can never say never, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, they'll be looking at the video of this meeting. So, thanks.
Thank you. And just so you know, Angela, there are driveway and road improvements that were supposed to be done in the fall, but unfortunately, and your husband probably can attest to this, the state changed the LoCIP form this past fall, and all of a sudden, this little yellow box appeared that was never on them before. So our funding got denied for the road improvements, the driveway improvements, because we couldn't check that little box off. We can now, we corrected the situation, but the driveway coming in off Hollow Road is going to be widened and redirected as you enter the park, and the driveway that goes out to Oak View will be also another improvement that goes as part of that. They should have been done in the fall, but unfortunately, due to a change in policy at OPM, it got held up, but that's on the radar for spring. So, because the driveways can't change whether the committee wants them that way or not, because we're very limited as to where the availability is. And that's only part of that.
So this is just a follow-up question, and I probably can ask my husband because he's sitting next to me. But in matters of safety, do we not rob Peter to pay Paul to fix things that are a matter of safety? We know there's probably, there's surpluses in other budgets, there's other things, and if it's a safety issue, maybe money should be reallocated for different things, right? We're sound as a city, as a town, correct? So, you know,
It's not a matter of.
we cannot sacrifice safety.
We're not going to. As this improvement is done, the money is there in the LoCIP account, and that money will be used for that. It's just that it got held up because of one thing. But that driveway is going to come in. It's going to be a little different as it progresses because it's going all the way up, and this was done with the help of consultation of somebody who does traffic engineering. It's going up to all the way what I refer to the intersection, which is where you come up to, if you've seen where that curbing is, it's going to go all the way up to there. Then you're either going to go left to soccer, right and then left to lacrosse, or right and then down a ways and into a parking lot on the far end of the playground for parking on that side. So it was considered, it's not that there was shortage of funds, it's just a matter of getting it done with the appropriate funds and the appropriate timing. But
Okay.
no, it's not a shortage, so. Yeah. You first, you second.
Thank you, folks. My name is Chi Lam from 323 Sarah Circle. Hopefully everyone's having a great New Year so far. Newer to the community, and both of my kids are part of the soccer team, and just trying to follow the process. But I'm just going to take a step back and keep it simple. My background is financial planning. If I had a client come to me and say, hey, we've got 20-plus acres that we're thinking about leasing out for $500 or whatever it was per year, I would say, are there other options? And I'm just curious as to why this was the best decision for the town to, lease it out for that price, just from a business standpoint. That's my only question, so.
That's a per acre price that land gets leased for around here for farming. And at that point, there was no other use for it. It wasn't pressed. It's been that way for 100 years. And until it's deemed otherwise, it keeps it clear, it keeps it open at no expense to the town through highway department or park and rec or any other departments.
So from a revenue perspective, no other options?
It's not a revenue worrier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
that's just,
with time, it will be
Yeah.
utilized, and like I said tonight, we were approached by this not-for-profit for an educational possibility, which really is quite intriguing, and the committee is going to learn about that as part of the research process, and that's a very strong possibility because it was a significant value to sell it to this nonprofit for. So, I mean, and that could then offset other improvements within the other 60 plus 70 acres down there. So it's a possibility to look at. It goes kind of with what you're talking about with financial. That opportunity wasn't here 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It happened as the stimulation of all this discussion. So maybe that couple few $100,000 from that might fund other improvements down there. I don't have that answer, and that's going to be the committee's answer.
And it sounds like if there was the opportunity for different investment partners, that they would actually consider getting out of that 2-year lockup? Is that?
It's you know, Jim, and it might be helpful, but the town has over 1,000 acres of open space. And the town has to maintain that open space. And that's an expense to the town. And what this does is it takes that maintenance expense away from the town. So that's a liability that the town saves, right? So that's a savings to the town, to the taxpayer. And because the farmer is insuring it and is using it. So it's not a profit center for the town, but it's an expense savings to the town.
Keeps it
Right?
usable.
Sure.
And it was never looked to, going back to my research, as a
not a profit generator.
as a profit generator. It was the town didn't have to maintain it, and so there's 60, maybe 100 acres out of 1,000. So it's 10% of
More than that, but, yeah.
of open space that is being utilized for farming purposes, that's
It's just, we'll look into it.
Yeah.
We'll look into it, but it is an interesting possibility.
Sure.
And I mean, your children are young. They might be interested in this educational program like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's involved with it at this point, but it certainly got our interest when we were approached by this nonprofit about it. So
Excellent.
we'll see.
Appreciate it.
All right, look at right now, the price of lettuce and eggs and everything else when you go to the store. So anything's possible. It's ridiculous. I said $15 for 18 eggs the other day at Big Y. Jeez. Yes.
All right, good night, everyone. Joe Nichols, Hitchin Post Drive. I was here a couple of months ago. Same guy, different haircut, but it's me. All right. I just want to thank you guys for the work you do to make the town what it is, and obviously your predecessors. You know, I'm a new resident of the town. We all know there's reasons why people move to the town of Orange, and because it's a beautiful place to live. I did not expect to come up here and talk tonight, but there's certain things that was mentioned tonight that have my head spinning, not because I don't understand, but how those things played out. The lease that we're talking about, when were you aware that this lease had a rollover after the 90 days, and why are we discussing it tonight and it never came up prior to, I don't know, the meeting when I was here?
Because generally, we put the leases on the agenda for late winter, early spring. And since there was interest in it, I said, we'll put them on in January. And then this was brought to light as part of that.
You also mentioned that there's a committee that was created. This committee has not met yet. There's been no discussion, but we're voting to approve a lease to kick the can down the road another 2 years. Fred Wolf Park is not going to be developed overnight. We all know that. But why is the lease being rolled over? I mean, I'm not an attorney, but the original lease that you mentioned, is that the same lease that gets renewed every 2 years?
Again,
Yes.
it's not a lease, it's a license.
A license. And
Yes.
when was that license originally drafted, created?
98?
98.
98. So does it, if there's language in it, regardless of what it is, 90 days, 180 days, does that get basically rolled over after the 2-year period, every 2-year period.
It has, unless you act on it. And we hadn't acted on it.
So this has been rolled over since '98.
Right. Because there has been no need for consideration prior to this.
So basically, if we could have been having this discussion like we just had it in the fall, 2 years from now, we'll still be having this discussion?
No.
Okay, so why not?
Because what the lawyer said before, to put it on the calendar for September
Yeah, so
24th, and that's when it will be eradicated and changed, should the planners and the committee and all come up with a use for that.
right, the licensee exercised their option.
Okay,
So there's no action for this board to take because they had a right, the licensee had a right to renew for a 2-year period. They only get one option.
So
one option. So when,
So
is
in
this
two-
the first time they've exercised that option?
This is the first time they've exercised it. Prior to this, the board has renewed the license.
It just rolled.
So it just so happened this time that Fred Wolf Park is under the residents of this town wants it to.
Race-
I actually have a question, and since I'm a new member, a resident of this town, so I'm going to talk about not the adults in the room. If any of my players are at home listening and try to maybe bring this down a little simpler. So you guys basically are the elected members to run this town, right? You guys are the town managers, correct?
Correct.
Elected to run the town. Would you say the town of Orange, would you define the town of Orange as the physical boundary of the town or the residents, the people that live in this town?
It's
the private homes?
it's the people who live in the town.
Community.
So it's the people who live in the town. That's what's more important, not the actual Orange bordering Woodbridge or whatever it is. So if a huge population of the town is interested in, let's say, the use of land in the town, why are we basically ignoring the people of the town?
Because the charter of the town says that we have certain obligations that we live under. And this document, and obviously, because of what the people have done, they have put a spotlight on this document. And this document, the user said, I'm going to exercise my rights because there's a lot of interest in this. So they never had to do this before because no one's expressed any interest in this before. So that's why I suspect, because I have not had any conversations with this entity, I suspect they've exercised their rights to protect their rights, but their rights are only for 1 2-year period. In 2 years from now, they have no rights. And it will be up to whoever is sitting at this table to decide whether or not to extend
They're right.
a new
Agreement.
license.
Well, my question is why pretty much everyone in this room who had interest to see Fred Wolf Park, this lease not move forward was just notified tonight of this one-time option?
Because we just got notice of their right of renewal in December. So this was the first meeting for us to raise it to the public.
I see. Jen wants to come back up and.
Hold on, Mitch. Forgot your hat.
I got it, Jim. I'll bring it back. So, in light of the conversation that just happened now, so the person who farms this land never before exercised that, and now all of a sudden, on their very own, read their lease,
It's licensed.
read their license without any interaction from anyone from the board that needed to do that, and all of a sudden said, I should read this and now go forward. And here's my question, and you don't have to answer it. I'm just curious, because I don't know what the pushback about using this land is. I've read things. I hope there's not pushback because I don't see the use of, I don't know about this nonprofit, but I know a lot of people are wanting to use it for, no, I'm just saying, wanting to use it for fields. And again, what I say is we go to other towns and we see these beautiful fields. I don't know what the pushback from other people are. I would like to hear more about that. But it just seems interesting that all of a sudden this person would read their lease on their own without having to do that. And the other,
Well, I don't understand why. There's been so much discussion. This has been such a public discussion that I'm certain that they are
and then
aware of it.
and then when that was brought
It's not
up,
surprising to me.
and then when that was brought up, to only hear it tonight for other people to say, hey,
Right.
you know, let's look at this when they brought it up.
Right, but
That's-
this is the first opportunity for, we're a public agency. This is the first time for us to bring it to the public, because we just got it in December, right? And this is the first meeting since we got it to bring it to the public.
And the other things I just wanted to bring up, Mitchell's point of just look at the language in the contract as you're doing it, because it might not, and again, I really hold on to the fact that you said that it can be canceled at any time if we decide to use that land. That, you know, that part to me is important. But what he, I think, was trying to say, and, you know, it's a busy time tonight to try to look at it, is that that was only exercised within the first contract year. That after that, it's just a license. So it can be terminated at the date of the license being done. Just look at the language as you're looking through it, because that's what I think he was trying to say. It was only good for that first term with the 180 days.
What's that, 80? Right.
Yeah, and then, but it doesn't necessarily go every year. So they might have done that, but doesn't mean that that was a legal thing to do. I'm just saying I'd like to look further into that.
I understand. If
Piece.
the town wants to terminate this going forward, we will, again, I did not draft this document.
No, it's okay. I'm just asking the legal questions now that I'm
Right.
listening to it. So.
It's gonna, with time, there's something gonna happen here. It's not anywhere near time right now to worry about it. So, you know, the committee has got a lot to do before we get to that point. By then, this will be in its second year, which will be finishing out, and that's when there's the opportunity to change it.
Right, okay.
And, you know, they will look at all these other options, whether it be this, like I said, there's not-for-profit, the fields. I think personally, there's more than enough fields down there. Maybe they need improvements on the fields that are there. Maybe that parking and stuff that's down there needs improvements after 22 years. Maybe a few loads of gravel or asphalt should be put in down there. But, you know, that doesn't all fall on the town.
But, you know, and let me.
Little
Okay,
League
sorry.
arranged for grants and got their own parking and put in work and improvements down at Little League all on their own. You know, others find other ways to do some, and, you know, other organizations need to do that also.
Right, no, and I do think, and I keep saying, I guess I keep saying the soccer field because we've been mentioning that, but, you know, the playground is, you know, one of the biggest pieces. And again, like I said when I was first up here, I go play pickleball in other towns. I go to parks in other towns. I go to I don't think we can do the water from what I talked to my neighbor about because of we can't do the splash pad. Yeah, but
That was kind of my headache.
yeah, but that's, you know, basketball. We can't use it in the summer because there's camp. So we keep saying about the fields. That's an additional thing. That's one of the things that my son does. But, you know, I go to the playgrounds with my kids. I always have, but again, not in this town since you can only go during certain times.
hours, yeah.
So, you know, the fields are one part of it, but the playground is a big piece. And, you know, the safety issue is another thing. And again, my kid's 11 right now, and I'm like, stay with me when we walk through it. So. Yeah, I know, but you know, but you turn your head and they're little kids, like you said, ball. You know, it's like, all right, thank you.
So, yep, so that's where we are. Would you like to speak? Oh, okay.
Dee Dee Leboff, 660 Broadview Road, Orange. I just have one question. If you got this information in December, why are you voting on these leases? Why couldn't you just push them a month ahead, since it's earlier than they're usually done anyway? I mean, you knew that there was going to be a reaction to it. We never heard it before. Why vote this month when you just got it in December and no one heard about it before?
It wouldn't make a difference anyhow.
Yes, it would.
No, it wouldn't.
If you didn't vote on these leases, you wouldn't have the anger that's now existing.
I don't see a
understand the
lot of
question.
anger because I think it's
We
been
didn't
explained.
know about it. Yeah, you know, we didn't know about
The
it.
timing of the notice came after
I
the meeting.
understand that after the December meeting, which I was at.
Right, it was the timing. This was the first meeting
So
after the
if,
notice.
so why, since the leases were never voted on in January, why are they being voted on when you just got this information? Why not share this information
We are.
beforehand, before voting on the leases?
I don't understand your statement. I don't
I think
understand.
it's very clear.
Well,
We meet monthly.
I understand, I've been here
And
every
so-
month.
Okay, so then you understand that the last time we met, right, we didn't have this information. The holidays came, and we're now here for our January meeting. So, like you, we just found out about this as well. So this is a discussion for these issues tonight,
But you're
okay?
voting on leases. Why vote on leases this month? Why not vote on it next month after this kind of a discussion? Why are you voting on it?
what difference
Well-
does it make?
Well, because,
What difference does this make to you? Because the one that you're concerned about, we can't do anything about until September of
25.
four or 5. So what
I'm just
difference does it
making a
make?
point. I'm just
It's-
making a point.
But it's not a point.
That's your opinion.
That's the will of the body.
You know, we thanked you for adding a committee, which, from what I understand, doesn't meet till January 19th, but you're talking about something about that playground, which was supposed to be, by the way, the whole Fred Wolf Park was supposed to be for passive recreation. And raising corn for a farmer's animals is not passive recreation.
Okay, yes, Mitchell.
Vincent, I've got two issues I want to take up. First one has to do with this idea of the initial lease and the renewal period.
Yep.
So this started in 1998, and you're
Yes.
saying the language has been the same every time we voted on this?
I've traced
Or-
every single lease from 1998 forward. and
Okay.
they're identical.
So we voted every 2 years.
Yep.
When, if you were town attorney, we would only vote it every 4 years. Because they would have taken an option, we
No.
wouldn't have to vote?
No.
No, why?
Because this is the first time they've exercised their option, Mitch. This is what I'm trying to
Okay.
get you to understand.
Okay.
They haven't exercised their option, so that's why you have voted. But because they exercised their option, there's no action necessary. Prior to this date,
Yep.
they never exercised their option,
Okay.
so you entered into a new license. But this time, because of the public interest,
Yep.
they decided to exercise their option. So by doing so, it triggered their legal right to extend or renew the license as a matter of law
Okay.
or a matter of contract.
Okay.
So there's nothing for you to do. Prior to this, you voted to enter into a new license
Because they didn't exercise.
because they did not exercise their option.
Well, it
It's just-
should have been removed from the table before we even got to this point tonight, if this was all known.
I didn't, because of the public interest, I felt the public deserved an explanation,
And the opportunity to
All
have
right.
discussion on it.
you know?
Point
So
number.
I'm sorry
point
if I
num- all
upset
right.
you, but
No, I just wanted to get an explanation. Point number 2 is the idea that the lease runs from April 14th to April 13th.
and there have been Scribner's errors in this document from day one, but
Okay, but every lease has stated, if you looked at them all, I imagine they all started January 1st of a year, went to December 31st
Wrong.
of another year.
Wrong. They actually go from May 15 to May 14. That's, the term goes from May 15 to May 14. And that's what the original term was.
Okay? So when did that change to be January to December? because the last one says January to December, and this one says January to December.
Right, and that, I don't know exactly when that happened,
All
but
right, well, let's
the-
go back to the last one. The last one says January. It wasn't
I-
signed until April 14th, but the term of the lease specifically says January 1, 2020.
And I believe that was a Scrivener's error, because when you go back to the original term was May to May.
So why is the one in front of us tonight, which we're not voting on, for all of these, don't say May to May? They all say January to December.
I can't answer that question, I did not.
Okay, but you have a legal document that was signed 2 years ago by the first selectman
And
that says
I
that
believe
the
that was
term.
I believe that was a Scrivener's error.
It's not a Scrivener's error would be if it said 2020, 2022
No,
instead of
Mitch,
2021.
Mitch.
When it says 2 years.
This license agreement is entered into at the top on a certain day, and it says the term, but when you go back to the original document that sets the original term that all the other documents flow from, okay? So now you're creating a gap. I'm going from I'm going from, and I'm trying to be fair to all the parties.
Okay, but don't
Okay?
blame that on Susan Stone, because they didn't change the
I'm not
January.
putting it on anyone. I'm tracing it. I sat down with the former town clerk, and I traced it so that I could just lay it out on the table. The original term started in May. It didn't start in January, and I have the document here.
Okay, well, somewhere along the line, it changed to January. All I'm saying is the current document terminates December 31st, 2022.
And
it's very specific. The term of this license shall be for a period of 2 years, commencing January 1, 2021, and terminating December 31st, 2022. The fact that it's signed on
I
April
understand
14th.
that, Mitch.
Vinny, how many labor contracts have we signed, that
Yes.
Jim signed, that I've signed, that say July 1 to June 30th, but we don't sign them until
I get that.
August or September, because that's when it gets approved,
you're
we get
right.
around to it.
Or later.
Or later, right.
you're
but,
right.
but it goes back to July 1st. The same way we didn't sign this, or Jim didn't sign this, to April 14th, it went back to January 1st. My only point is the fact that I take exception with the fact that this doesn't expire until April 13th, 2023. If I accept your
And I considered that.
okay.
I considered that, and then I traced it back, and I traced it back, and I said, you know, when I looked at all the documents, and I traced it back, and I said, in order to make this whole thing make sense, and to be fair, I said, this is the only way to read all these documents to say the term was intended to run from when this relationship began.
I don't think it really matters, Mitch, at this point, because you have nothing before you to consider for design, for layout, for improvements, for any of that.
Jim, I agree. The difference is
we know how to rectify it. That's been
Okay.
discussed. Well, it's explained how to rectify it. It's noted when it's to be rectified, and that's the easiest way to handle it. And by then, the committee will have done theirs. The design company, whoever it may be, will have done their work. There may be public input, et cetera. But at the moment, you're just spinning your wheels.
Well, I recognize what you're saying, Jim, about it's going to take time, and it was mentioned by a number of people, Ms. Fleming, Ms. Higgins, it mentioned, we know it's going to take time. My intent tonight would have been to, if we were going to approve a lease and not table this motion, would be to approve it for 1 year, thinking that we could get things through the committee in 1 year and have a much better understanding rather than 2. So instead of being a 12-month situation, we were thinking, based on what Vinny was saying, a 24-month situation. Now we're out to a 28-month situation, because we're not out till April of 2025,
Yeah, but
lost
they won't
count.
be doing anything prior
Well,
to that.
I guess I was hoping that we get things done sooner than that, but maybe I'm wrong. All right.
All right,
I-
Bob?
Appreciate your time tonight. Sorry to keep it. But Jim, I got to applaud you. We got this on the agenda. Now, I've been at Tom Paisano, 523 Fairway Road, Orange, Connecticut. I've been doing, for those of you that are stranger to me, I've been doing Orange soccer for 37 years. Also, that developed the park with Ralph Capistrano, the lower agricultural fields. We built soccer fields and baseball fields there. We built Fred Wolf Park. More recently, without telling you all the other history, more recently, Orange Soccer Association, 2 years ago, have been talking about these farm fields and the possibility, Orange Soccer Association, no charge to the town, we're going to take over Phase 6 and develop the fields, which is the cornfields that clearly been to Park and Rec for 2 years, been to this board for 2 years asking about this lease. So let's just get this story straight. Did any, Ralph, John, Mitch, PJ, Jan, did you get an email from me? Judy, did you get an email from me with an attachment, with a letter clearly asking to farm this land?
That goes straight to the first.
Yeah, we did get it. Well, you got it too. I carbon copied every one of you on emails. You certainly hit the word document and got the document. So yes, I asked for it. I asked for it before January and December, knowing that the Hines Farm people had not given notice in time to do this contract, which has the dates of December 31st. So yes, they would have then given notice to Vin. Now, Vin, I tend to disagree with you, and if you don't mind, we'll have council look at this, to go over your work, and we will find out whether this is a legal contract or not, and perhaps we have to do a cease and desist. Look, people out in the town of Orange, we don't want to see $375 contracts instead of using this land for your children. The plan has already been designed. It's a nice committee. I'm willing to, and I will, because I have done this for all these years. We're going to give all my benefit to this committee that they asked me. Okay, I've not been asked to be on the committee. For those of you that don't know, if it wasn't for Orange Soccer Association donating $10,000 to start the soccer fields, that wouldn't have never have happened. Anyone want to challenge me on that, please do. So we would like to see the next phase. Orange Soccer Association has the capability of helping financially, design-wise. I've been involved since 1998 with everybody. Ralph Capistrano building fields originally, Bob Souza, Mitch Goldblatt. Mitch, you've been there. You've gone over these documents. We know damn well what's been going on. We let them build the fields because crops were in the field, and so you let them do that. Otherwise, the interest was supposed to be off Little Peck Road. That was a design deal that was done. Fortunately, the builder at Hollow Road was going bankrupt, so we came in with a temporary road. All that history I can show you and document and what took place. That doesn't need to be done now. These same mistakes don't need to be repeated. We don't need to put our children in jeopardy and utilizing. The only reason I'm not on that committee is because I disagree with our first selectman on the location of a playground. Okay, big deal. Okay, I have nothing to do with it. I have no power in this town, and I've been told by more than one, you're meaningless. Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying I'd be glad to help. But let's get the story straight, guys. You're playing around with children's future for $325 worth of corn. I'm sure Mr. Hine would be embarrassed if he was here today listening to this. Now, he's a little older. His kids farm the field. I got it. But what's being farmed there is silage corn and maybe some pumpkins on occasion. And none of that came up last year. It was a disaster. But do we really need that? Is that important? Is this what this board should worry about? I would take that contract and throw it in the garbage, and you know what? Let them sue us, okay? Now, last thing I'm telling you is, yes, Jim, I know you keep talking about other uses and threatening to give this to a culture. You know what? If that land goes up for sale, Orange Soccer will buy it. Okay? You think it's worth $200,000? Let's buy that land, and we'll do what needs to be done to finish the park. That's ridiculous. Orange Soccer doesn't have to do that. The people of this town need to vote correctly, get this thing done. I don't know if we need 2 years. I don't know if we need 9 months, but in 9 months there will be an election. Thank you.
Okay. The last one we have is for Stephen Besputa, who rents land At Ewan Farm Preserve, I thought he had land in 2 places. No, just Ewan Farm Preserve. He has 10 acres, I think, approximately over there. Any discussion on Stephen Besputa's property that he uses? Seeing none, is there a motion on that one? All right, is there a second? Second made on that?
Jim, I think it is two spots. It's Tyler City,
Where?
approximately 8 acres, and Lambert Road, approximately
Well,
2
yeah, but
acres.
it's all on the same
Oh, okay.
property. I thought he had land elsewhere too, but that's not town property. I'm thinking down the street down here. So, all right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Unanimous. Okay, thank you. Committees, Pension Board, Mitchell. I think you guys are going to find that you've done pretty well. Most people are saying that the things are doing pretty good. I don't know if Mr. Shanley will.
I believe we do a 5-year smoothing, which certainly helps the numbers.
Yeah. So-
Because the previous year was very high versus this year's being very low. We should be okay.
I
But
know
I haven't seen the numbers yet.
I know that Mr. Williams has told us the town's interest income is far up from what they had planned for in the budget. So that's a good thing. It's a lot up from what they had planned. So capital planning, Ralph, I know your committee has been working.
We've been working very hard, and we're almost finished. We have a meeting scheduled for Friday morning at 10 o'clock to finalize the list of projects and the priority of those projects. We got a total of 38 projects covering $11.5 million.
Huh, there you go.
You got $11.5 million?
That's why there's prioritizing.
And we prioritized them regarding of possible funding sources at the request of the Board of Finance. So it's not just what the department heads put in, but things that have been known and presented before. So it's a total facility for requirement for 2024.
Good. And I got Mr. Foyer's list today of his roads that he'll be going to the Board of Finance with. That list also, what's up and coming for this coming year's paving. So they're working on that as well, and there's a lot going on. So it's all good. And there's a lot going on even in economic development. So, all right, with that said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, you're adjourned at 8:34, thereabouts.